Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So, today I'm going to talk a little bit about, well, I've talked about this a few times now, the cost of retro gaming. And I have done a video where I talked about the stupid cost of retro gaming, on how much things were kind of insane, prices were up and all that other stuff. And after I did that video, and there was a bunch of people that chimed in. Some people were saying, yeah, it's crazy, it's too expensive. Others are saying, well, people are going to pay for what they want to pay, right? They're going to, if someone wants to pay $60 for a Super Mario Brothers cartridge, they're going to pay it. We can't do anything about that. But this video, I want to talk about, is the cost of retro gaming starting to actually go down? Or is there a possibility that's going to start climbing down? And what kind of brought this into my head, because, I'm always looking at it like, oh, it's always expensive, or, collecting for it is expensive. But then sometimes you realize it might not be. Perhaps it's just the avenues you're using to build your collection, or maybe we're just inundated with these posts of people trying to ask for something in an insane cost that really nobody's going to pay, and it just kind of gets too much attention. Now, what I was thinking about, because yesterday we actually did a garage sale. There was a street sale going on. Every street kind of does that at some point in time, where all the neighbors get together and say, hey, let's have a street sale. And, I put out some stuff. I was like, my basement's a mess right now. My man cave is literally in pieces. I got to fix it up. I got to do a whole, I'm going to rejig it, redo it maybe. I'm due for a man cave video, man cave tour video. But anyways, once I fix it all up, make it nice. Anyways, that's not what I want to talk about right now. I was deciding on what I wanted to sell. And I had a bunch of games sitting over here. A bunch of Atari games that were kind of like, I bought in a lot. So, you go in on eBay and someone's like, oh, 25 Atari cartridges for X dollars. And I only needed, say, 3 of those cartridges or whatever. So I bought the whole lot of them. And then I end up with, like, extras of, some of the classics, like Centipede, Space Invaders, Pac-Man, E.T., all these little extra cartridges. And I'm like, what am I going to do with them? I kind of shoved them on a shelf. And thinking backups maybe. I can't sell these things. Like, I can't go on eBay and be like, Pac-Man, Atari, what am I going to get? It's going to cost me more to ship the thing. So, to me, it's not worth it. They're common cartridges. They're not worth a lot of money. So I just kind of left them on the shelf. And as I was doing my little garage sale, I thought, well, let's spice up my garage sale. I ran downstairs, I grabbed my cartridges, and I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, is anybody going to want this? Is anybody going to care? I took them anyways. I put them on the table, and a lot of people were coming by and looking at them, and they were like thinking, oh, wow, that brings back memories, the nostalgia. I remember playing that when I was a kid. And, one guy even was like, does anybody even have an Atari anymore? There was a lot of these people saying that. And some people were buying them for fun. They were like, this would just be a cool thing to put on my shelf. Another guy, he actually, he was interested in it, but he's like, I don't have an Atari. And I thought, well, I have one in the basement. I have an extra one, the Atari Junior. And so I ran down and I grabbed it, and I'm like, I had an extra joystick, and I kind of bundled it all up and made a deal with the guy, $40. And he ended up taking the rest of my cartridges, because a few people came and took a few things for like, I was like a few bucks for each cartridge. I was pricing it pretty low. And then I made a deal with this guy. It was like $40 for the Junior, the joystick, a whole bunch of cartridges. And, he's going to go off, maybe have some fun. Maybe he's going to try and resell it. I don't know. And the other thing is, my neighbor beside me, they put out their old Atari. And I couldn't resist. This is an Atari 6-switch light sixer, they call it. It's got the piece there. It's a little bit thinner, so it's a light sixer. And I was talking to my neighbor before, and I remember him telling me he had this in his basement. He also likes the old games too, so I'm surprised he decided to sell this thing. But I ended up picking it up from him for $5. And, you know, when I saw it sitting there on the table, I kept looking at it and looking at it. I'm like, seriously? Someone's going to grab that and maybe try and flip it. So I saved it. I gave them the $5 and I took it. I mean, it's a classic Atari system. And I posted it on the Atari Age website, or sorry, Facebook page. And a lot of people kind of came in and they were like, you know, fair price. And, you know, some people made the comments like, you know, those would have been like that price every day before the pandemic. You know, 2016, prior to that, people would have paid $5 for this. But then during the pandemic, things changed and prices went up. And at that point, I guess people were like, you know, something like this was no longer in their heads a $5 item. This was now like a $20, $30, $40 item. And the game should be at like $10, $15, $20 each. You know, that kind of craziness. And a few people that were coming by and they were discussing the cartridges were saying things like, oh, you know, I still have mine in the basement. You know, a lot of people still have these things kicking around in their basement. You know, grandma's basement now, you know, these are all people that would have, you know, grown up, moved out, maybe have their own families, moved on to Nintendo Switch or Xbox. They got these old video game consoles sitting in their basement or their mother's basement. And at some point, maybe mother needs to move, maybe mother passes away, or father, or whoever, parent, and this stuff will resurface and then just get sold off to people who just think they're neat. And it just kind of made me wondering, like, could this be a sign that, you know, now that the pandemic has kind of subsided, I mean, it's still out there, I'm not going to deny that, but at the same time, people have gotten out, they're doing things now. We're not in that lockdown phase anymore. We're not sitting in our homes trying to find something to do. People are getting out and about and they're having fun. Prices are now probably starting to change. And the other thing is, the older systems, now maybe the Xbox and PlayStation, the earlier stuff of that, might start to be more expensive because a whole new generation is starting to get into that nostalgia. Like, if I think about my generation and what I enjoyed, it's pretty much Nintendo NES and before. So I don't have any nostalgia to the Super Nintendo, really. I mean, I didn't get one until I was in my late teens. I don't have any nostalgia to any of the PlayStation stuff. I really don't. The Xbox stuff, Dreamcast. I've never even tried a Dreamcast. I don't know anything about the games. You know, so I have no nostalgia, but you got a whole new generation of kids that are maybe, you know, not kids, but young adults who might have grown up with this stuff, and now the nostalgia is there. Maybe the prices on that section of retro gaming might stay and rise. But the older stuff, I think at some point, the audience is going to be shifted to a point where we either just already have our old crap and we don't care anymore, or we just don't want it. And that could start to create a flux or a change. We also have emulation. I've shown this off lots of times. And a lot of people are gravitating towards that. Because when I was talking to some people who were passing by looking at the cartridges, a lot of them were saying, yeah, I got a Steam box, or I got this where I emulate it. And, you know, they don't have any need for the old cartridges. They don't have any need for it. Other than the guy who said it just looks like cool shelf candy. Yeah. But other than that, it's like, yeah, I think a lot of this stuff will eventually, it should start to go down, because people are going to be like, well, either what the heck's an Atari? Because, you know, and I don't mean the new Atari stuff. I mean, like, the original stuff. A lot of kids today probably don't care. And when they get older, they're going to even care less. I actually had I remember one of the people that was looking at my cartridges, they told me they bought a flashback system, probably the thing I got up there, the AtGames thing, and tried to get their kid to play it and have fun with no, sorry, it wasn't the Atari one, it was the NES Classic. They tried to get their kid to play this, because her kid's really into the Switch. And he didn't like the blockiness, he didn't like the animation, he didn't like any of it. He's just like, what is this? This is like primitive, I don't like this. And so the kid just didn't care. So those kids aren't going to end up wanting these old Atari systems, the one that I picked up. They're not going to care about a ColecoVision and Intellivision. They don't even know what any of it is. So I'm starting to see that perhaps there is this kind of, opening of the clouds that it's going to start to go back down. I mean, I do go into a lot of retro gaming stores that exist around my area, and I see like tons of Nintendo NES games, and the prices are all seem to be stable and going down. Maybe some of the popular titles are still kind of nutty, like The Legend of Zelda or like the Dragon Warrior series. Some of the ones that were really, really good, they might still be. And of course, there's always going to be those, like what was it, DuckTales 2, or like there was a few very late games that came out that are really expensive because not many exist, and I get that. I mean, something like that, sure, it's a collector's item for sure, but you can still get things like Super Mario 3 and some of the other great stuff for like $10. So perhaps there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe the cost of retro gaming is going to start coming down. Perhaps. I don't know. Like I said, there's a totally different generation. And one little piece to add to this at the end is, and I've talked about this before, the young generation are really going to have a real different nostalgia if they even have it in the future, because a lot of this stuff has gone digital. Like Nintendo Switch and stuff, a lot of games are digital. A lot of the games they play are handheld on their phones, and they don't play them very long before they're on to the next one. So I don't know if there's going to be a nostalgia even for them in the future, and if retro gaming will even exist in the future. But that's another topic. Anyways, let me know what you think. Throw some comments down below. I hope you subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.